Thank you, Chair Ray and members of the House General Government Committee for the opportunity to provide opponent testimony to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 10. My name is Collin Marozzi, and I serve as the Advocacy Director of the ACLU of Ohio. Here are some facts about SJR 10. One, photo ID is already law in Ohio. Though there may be a ballot issue on this come November, Ohioans are clear-eyed, they have no choice. Photo ID is the law of the land come November 6th, whether these proposals succeed or fail. Number two, the political motivation behind these proposals is apparent. Gas is $4.50 a gallon, food prices are straining family budgets, and the median age of a first-time home buyer has never been higher. SJR 10 is meant to distract us from these truths. And three, nothing in SJR 10 makes Ohioans' lives easier, cheaper, or freer. With the bevy of serious challenges facing Ohioans, one would think the state legislature would have more pressing matters to attend than spending taxpayer-funded time to amend our state constitution with something that has already been Ohio law for years. Plainly put, these proposals are out of touch with what the people of Ohio want and need. Efforts like SJR 10 feed the cynicism strangling our current politics. I think a credible argument can be made, and something that I have personally heard from Ohioans, that this could actually hurt public trust. It's only logical that confusion will spike once about our existing photo ID requirement if voters are asked to approve voter ID in November. Supporters of these resolutions assert the policy's popularity warrant rushing these resolutions to the ballot in hopes of adding them to our Constitution. What else should we enshrine in our Constitution that polls well and is already law? School speed zone limits, designating the 4th of July as a state holiday. In these contexts, it's easy to see that this is nonsensical. Proponents also contend SJR 10 is needed to restore public trust in elections. We've heard this time and again. This was the justification given when the General Assembly banned counties from having multiple secure drop boxes open year-round. This was the justification when the General Assembly stripped the post-election grace period for absentee ballots, first from 10 days to 4, and then from 4 days to 0. This was the justification given when the General Assembly passed photo ID the first time in 2022. And this was the justification given when the General Assembly targeted the citizen petition process in August of 2023. It just begs the question, when will public trust be restored? When is enough enough? The fact is, Ohio's elections are secure and accurate. They have been secure and accurate for far longer than we've had photo ID laws. Ohio has serious challenges ahead, and we need serious people to solve them. And SJR 10, unfortunately, is nothing more than a political stunt, and we intend to treat it as such. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Representative John?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
Is the ACLU a national organization?
The ACLU of Ohio is incorporated in the state of Ohio, through the chair.
But it's a national organization.
We are affiliated with the national branch of the ACLU, but they are two different organizations.
Thank you. Follow up?
Yes.
Do you look to your national organization for policy matters?
Through the chair, often.
Follow up.
Yes.
Is there any state in this country that bars a national organization, specifically the ACLU, from testifying for or against a legislation?
Through the chair, not to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Russo?
Thank you very much. Just to clarify, your organization, because it's incorporated in Ohio, when you make decisions and policy positions, those decisions are made by your Ohio members and your board of directors, correct?
Through the chair, yes, we have an independent board that determines our position on all matters that the ACLU of Ohio engages with.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Quick follow-up.
Yes.
There's a lot of discussion about whether, I think it's clear to some of us, this is very politically motivated, this constitutional amendment. And I think folks want to make this a discussion about whether or not you agree or disagree with voter ID. I like to point out we've had voter ID in the state of Ohio for quite a while. It's been incredibly effective. And so my question for you is, for you, is the opposition to this about voter ID, or is it that this amendment is so poorly written that it will exclude many eligible voters from actually having their vote counted?
Through the chair to the representative, our opposition is, the ACLU of Ohio is opposed to voter ID. You can go back and look at the State House record from 2022 when this body originally passed voter ID. Our opposition also is based in the idea that this is an improper way to treat the Ohio Constitution, a document in which we were told we need to be very, respectful and admire the reverence of this document, back in 2023 when we had to withstand an effort to make the citizen-initiated process that much more difficult. I say that this is primarily political because when you look at the actual resolution, the sponsors and proponents have gone to great lengths to stress that this actually doesn't change anything. The only thing that is important is getting people out to vote. That is the only selling point of this resolution. It doesn't change our law. It does not include the safeguards that have been mentioned by several previous witnesses. And so when we're looking at this through the eyes of the voter, the only thing that I have heard when I've told Ohioans that this is happening, this could potentially on their ballot, is one, confusion that we already have voter ID, and why are we doing this if it's already in state law? But also, two, it's a priorities conversation. This is what we're focusing on when childcare costs are through the roof, housing prices are through the roof. We have a lot of other issues that this country is facing, and something like enshrining what's already in state law into our Constitution is not really on the people's radar that I have talked to.
Hey, Representative Brent.
Thank you so much, and I'm from the chairwoman to the witness. I'm so glad that you brought up about the economy, because I know everybody's contacting us about talking about the gas prices, groceries, the cost of just even getting on the bus. I had a constituent couldn't even get to a job interview because of how much it costs for a public transit for a ticket, and childcare deserts. We just lost another daycare in my community, so that's terrible. But I digress. You had talked about, nothing at Ohio Senate Joint Resolution 10 does not make Ohioans' life easier, cheaper, or free. If we're living in a perfect world here in Ohio, which we could have a perfect world if you want to, I say if Jesus came back, who knows, if you believe in Jesus. What would be your way for us to still have secure elections that are cheaper and freer for Ohio voters, that everyone will feel included? Tell me what that world would look like.
Through the chair to the representative, I think one option is, it's very clear that voter ID in this state is here to stay. So I think we should be doing a lot more to, one, make sure people realize that a free state ID is available to them. I recently moved to Licking County and got an updated driver's license with a new address. And when I was there, I didn't see a single sign, anything to inform individuals at the bureau that this was an available option to them. Secondly, I think what also could be helpful to strengthen our elections is focusing on the other side of the ledger. Election integrity is a two-way street. So yes, we need secure elections, and this body has gone through great lengths to secure our elections, some needlessly, in the ACLU of Ohio's opinion. Some are good ideas. But we're only focusing on restrictions and protections. We're never focusing on access. We're never focusing on, the possibility of wanting to incorporate a broader base of voters into our process. So I think, first of all, just broadening the conversation to, one, recognize the fact that our elections are secure and accurate, as evidenced by the Secretary of State's own data. Secondly, talking about ways that we can encourage access that do not compromise security in any form or fashion, like voter registration forms in multiple languages, like absentee ballot applications in multiple languages, things that encourage access, but also provide a security element. If somebody is not an English speaker first, and they are reading a form in their own language, they may be much more able to read the fine print when it says, if you're not a citizen, do not complete this form. We hear reports of the minute numbers of people who register to vote who are not citizens. It does happen. Oftentimes, they check the box on the voter registration form that says, I'm not a citizen. So they don't even think that they are committing committing a crime. I think having those forms in multiple languages, I think having multiple early vote centers, I think restoring the absentee ballot grace period so we don't have 1,500 voters have their votes thrown out, which would have otherwise been valid. I think those are all great areas to start.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the follow-up, Chairwoman. From the Chairwoman to the witness again. So with this Ohio Senate Joint Resolution number 10, and the reason why I keep on saying it over and over again, one of my grandmas texted me, and she was like, you're in the middle of committee. Which bill are you working on? Because grandma don't know. So I'm repeating it for the grandma at the community center. Not to be funny, but who is the broad base of voters that this Ohio Senate Joint Resolution is overlooking, that's not focusing on, that would be left behind? Name off some of those people, not by name, obviously, but the demographics of people.
Through the chair to the representative, obviously poor Ohioans. I think one of the reasons you see such broad support for voter ID requirements is because on average, 85% of people have a driver's license. I have shown a driver's license to vote every single time I have gone to vote. That doesn't mean that the 15% that don't should be precluded from participating. So I think people that are poor and often don't have vehicles and don't drive, elderly, people that do no longer drive or live in a institutionalized setting. I think homeless individuals who do not have a stable address to put on most of their registration forms could also be brought into the fold a little bit more. And I think this would be good for society as well, because all empirical evidence suggests once somebody becomes a voter, they become much more likely to become a productive member of society and actually have agency over their own community and their own neighborhood. So I think that would be a great area to start. Obviously driver's licenses work for the vast majority of Ohioans. That is not going to be, and that's why I don't envision voter ID law in Ohio's revised code going anywhere anytime soon. So that is another reason why the ACLU of Ohio views SJR 10 as unnecessary at best.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Representative Plummer?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I didn't quite hear your answer or statement earlier. Does your organization support voter ID or not?
Through the chair to the representative, our organization thinks that voter ID laws, though they are popular to most people, do have the opportunity to leave people out who otherwise could. Now, we're not here to say we should get rid of voter ID laws. We did that in 2022 and we lost. So what we have focused on is educating people in the public, making sure they know that they have this free ID option, and trying to move on.
Follow up?
Yes.
So in 2022, you guys opposed voter IDs, is that correct?
Through the chair vigorously.
Okay. And you mentioned the statistics, 86% of all voters like voter ID, 69% of the Democrats, which is surprising they agree on that, 99% of Republicans, but you say the proposal's out of touch. So all we're doing is asking the voters, hey, do you want this in our Constitution? Yes or no, simple. So if the majority of the voters say, yes, we want this in our Constitution, are they out of touch like this proposal?
Through the chair to the representative, I think that they would once again view it as misapplied priorities. Voter ID is already the law in Ohio. It has been for years. I think this injects confusion when we're out talking to people. So I think that should it be on the ballot, I think it's very likely that it would pass. I don't think that means Ohioans think it's at the top of mind when they're looking at their lives and deciding how can it get better today.
All right, thank you. Representative Sonnenberg?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Collin, for being here today. I agree with much of your testimony, and thank you for being here. Could you maybe explain a little bit the last paragraph, page 1, you say, what else should we enshrine in our Constitution that polls well and is already law? School zone speed limits, designate the 4th of July as a state holiday. Can you expound upon why you believe we don't need this as a constitutional amendment when we already have strict voter ID laws, and that's the current law in our state, and those laws aren't going anywhere anytime soon?
Yeah, absolutely. And through the chair to the representative, I mean, I just think any objective observer of the Ohio General Assembly over the last 15 years has seen a pattern here, which is that the move is always to make voting more restrictive. It is, voter ID law in this state might as well be chiseled in marble as far as our concern. There's no viable path to overturning that anytime soon. And so that's why the ACLU of Ohio has, though we oppose voter ID, we have moved on to educating the public, trying to get folks to understand that they do have these free options available to, well, a free option available to them. And so when we're looking at resolutions like this, once again, the question begs to be asked, what are the priorities of our elected leaders? And when we get told all the time that our Constitution needs to be treated with a degree of reverence, and respect, and that's why we need to make it harder for citizens to amend our state constitution, I think that kind of flies in the face of when we're looking at SJR 10, where we're just copying and pasting what's currently in our revised code into our Constitution.
Any further questions for this witness? Oh, Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Collin, for coming in. I didn't know you were a Licking County resident. Are you in the 68th or the 69th House District?
Through the chair, I'm in the 69th.
Excellent.
I tried, but my wife said this is where it's going to be.
Very good. I just want to make sure I heard your testimony correct. Did you say when you speak to people, they ask you, why do we need to put that in the Constitution? It's law already?
Through the chair to the representative, yes.
Okay. And did you follow that up with, did you tell them that Virginia repealed their voter ID laws?
Through the chair to the representative, no.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Marozzi, for coming in. My question would be a follow-up on Representative Miller's question, kind of the same thing, like regarding, you say this is nonsensical, right, about changing school zones, speed limit laws, designating the 4th of July a state holiday. Do you know of any lobbying entity that is stated as in opposition of either of those issues?
Through the chair to the representative, I do not.
No. Okay. And to your own admission, you have vocalized opposition to voter ID laws, and we've seen in other states, Virginia and elsewhere, where this is a political issue debated back and forth. There are two sides of this issue. So I guess the rationale of putting this in the Constitution is because there is an active opposition to the issue, and we want to allow the voters to state their opinion on if this should be a debated issue within the legislative code, or if we should put this as a constitutional right to provide security within our elections. So I guess my question to you is, would the ACLU, on behalf of the ACLU, disavow any future efforts to ever change the photo ID laws that we have on the books today, or not?
Through the chair to the representative, short answer is no. The second, the elaborate answer to that is that there is no appetite for that whatsoever. Just like there was no appetite, say, in 2005 to overturn the gay marriage ban that was put into our Constitution in 2004. Now, we've seen when we're talking about popularity on issues, the popularity on the gay marriage ban has essentially inverted itself over the last 22 years since it's been in our Constitution. That is one of the chief reasons, aside from it discriminates from gay couples who just wish to share a life together. That is one of the key issues about talking about putting things in our Constitution. It is very difficult to change. It's exceedingly difficult to change once it's in there. Even though circumstances change, popularity changes. And if I could say, addressing the points of Hawaii and Virginia, though I understand that point, I do. When we're talking about precluding something future General Assemblies do, that to me sounds an awful lot like making sure that future Ohioans are kept from deciding key issues of their day. Otherwise, democratic representation. So I think when we're talking about protecting this for future General Assemblies, what you're really talking about is protecting it from future Ohioans, who, again, in the short term, photo ID is not going anywhere. But in 25 years, when we do have some of the new technology surrounded and it's become an issue, who knows? It's a lot easier to deal with those things more nimbly when they retain their position in the revised code without having to change the Ohio Constitution.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Madam Chair.